the Four Corners Project studio in Beit Shemesh, Israel. We are live for an interview with one of the most legendary schlockers of all time. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have in our studio Steve Bill, the producer of over 15 Shlock Rock albums, the lead guitarist, and welcome to the studio, Steve.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here.
Well, I just want to say that it's an honor to have you here. And tonight, special night, it's the 32nd night of the Omer. 32 is Lave, stands for Lave, heart. You are the heart and soul of Shlock and Roll.
Ooh, wow.
The heart of Shlock and Roll is still beating. Yes, indeed.
Did we ever Shlock that song?
No, that's got to be Shlocked. That has got to be Shlocked. The next Shlock Rock album, the next parody Shlock Rock album, we have to do that album.
One of my students at Frisch, where I'm teaching, once or twice a week, said to me, I said to him in the jazz band, I said, listen, next week we're going to do a song by, it's a very famous song called "The Preacher," famous jazz tune, and one of the guys in the band says, we should call it "The Rabbi." I said, who the hell do you think you are, Shlock Rock?
That's right, because only we can do it right.
Only we can do it. I said, you know something? I said, there's a formula for doing this kind of stuff, parody. Says, I've heard a lot of people do parody, but that, you have to abide by certain rules that makes it, really difficult to do unless you know what you're doing. I said, I only know one person who can do. Actually, that's not true. I know two people who can do that. You and Weird Al.
That's right. Weird Al Yankovic, though, and of course, he's a genius, beyond all geniuses. I've never met him, but I have had lunch with his drummer. Anyway, we digress. Let me just tell the people right now, ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Lenny Solomon Live, sponsored by the Four Corners Project. That's www.fourcornersproject.org. And I'd like you to go over to that website, make a donation for the year. It keeps us going. We have 3 albums that I'm working on right now. We want to do 10 music videos. We want to do we have this webisode, Lenny Solomon Live, and we have another webisode that we would like to do, and lots of great things, fresh content, informal Jewish education through music and media. Make a donation. That's number 1. Number 2, if you're watching from Facebook, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment. If you're watching from YouTube, subscribe to our Shlock Rock channel and subscribe to our Four Corners Project channel. You will always be notified when we go on. We have a regards from Judy Hertzfeld. Judy Hertzfeld says to Steve, hi, Steve, so good to see and hear you. Yes. So, okay, let's get into the interview. We are interviewing you. You are the most accomplished, B'li Ayin Hara musician of all that belong to the Shlock Rock family. Let's start with your beginning and how you became a musician. You once told me that before you became a musician, you went to law school.
Well, actually, it's way before that. So I, where I grew up in Elmont, Long Island, in New York, in my particular town, within a few block radius of where I live, were a lot of young kids my age and maybe a year older that were playing, were in bands. I'm talking about when I'm like 13.
Yeah.
All sorts of music going on. Rock and roll, little rock and roll groups. Everybody's having a good time. And so, I was involved in lots of different, playing with all my friends in little tiny groups. And, that was really the beginning for me. I just got, it was just, I can't explain it, but, it was obvious it was me. That's what I needed to do. And, I loved playing the guitar. You got to remember that in those days, you could get on the subway and go into Central Park, and every weekend they would have free concerts, and Led Zeppelin would play, and all sorts of people, Creedence Clearwater Revival, for free in Central Park. So you can imagine the influence that a young person would have. And then when I was 15, I got into a rock and roll group that was much older people than I was. They were in college, and I was obviously still in high school. But it was a very high functioning, rock group, and we played 3 or 4 nights a week in all the local clubs and bars, which was like, like my first I guess you call it a professional experience. And and from there it just kind of kept rolling along. And then the big thing that finally happened to me was my high school music teacher, God rest his soul, Leo Rossini, took a liking to me. I guess he thought I had some, ability of some sort, and he introduced me to the professional business in the city of New York, and hooked me up with all the contractors who were doing the things. And before I even graduated high school, I already had a contract with CBS as a staff guitar player.
I had no idea. Wow.
Making big money. I was making big money, for those days, and went out and bought myself a brand new sports car, that kind of stuff. And I was swinging. I was already doing what I wanted to do. And of course, my mom, Jewish mom, said, well, what are you gonna, you gotta have something to fall back on, the famous expression.
I know.
Mom, I said, I don't need anything to fall back on. I'm doing what I want to do, and that's all I'm ever going to do. And are you with me still?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Somehow I lost you. I mean, I lost you visibly. Let me just see what I can get rid of this. Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to do.
Well, there you are. Do you see me now? Do you see me, Steve? We're not getting... I do, but I'm not hearing you now. Now I'm not hearing you. No. I got... Your volume is out. You want to go out and come back in? You can go out and come back in if you want. Okay. Oh, you froze. Here we are. Yeah. I think what we'll do... Okay, while Steve is figuring it out, I will tell everybody that tomorrow night we have a music show, 11 p.m. Lag BaOmer show, the 11 p.m. Israel, 4 p.m. New York time. We have a show on Thursday night. That'll be show number 109, special show. And then, of course, Steve went out. I think he'll be coming back in shortly, and hopefully we will be smooth the rest of the way. But in the meantime, volume is fine. Otherwise, good. So we have good volume. We just had a little bit of an internet break. And a little bit of an internet break. Let's see if Steve will get back to us. But anyway, tomorrow night is a special show because it is 3,333 years and 33 days since we left Egypt. That's right. Tomorrow night's show is 333333. 3,333 years and 33 days since we left Egypt. Lag BaOmer. Tomorrow night. So you'll tune in. It's going to be a really fun show. Lots of music. And you'll have a great time. Now, let's see. Steve is not back yet. So... there's, yes, 333333. There we go. Shachar. We say hello to Shachar. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, this is live television. This is live internet, and sometimes these things happen. So we're going to we're gonna move as soon as Steve gets back. We're gonna ask him. Oh, here he is. Ah, Steve, you're back. Can you see us? Can you hear us?
Yeah, you there?
I'm here.
All right, thank God. Sorry about that. That's why I'm an
That's okay.
analog guy.
Right. I told everybody that tomorrow night is 3,333 years and 33 days since we left Egypt. 333333. Can you believe that?
Yeah, because I remember I got a flat tire on the way out.
There we go. Your wagon didn't hold up.
I was the first guy with pneumatic tires in Egypt. Let me tell you, it would have been a big thing, but we were in a hurry, so I couldn't really, In
Okay, so I want to move on, Steve, because I got to get to these. I'm going to ask you a question off the top of your head. Other than Shlock Rock, who did you have the most fun playing with? Engelbert Humperdinck, Tom Jones, Frank Sinatra, Liza Minnelli, Aretha Franklin, or Celine Dion?
Are those my only choices?
No, you can give me somebody else.
Okay, well, I'm going to name someone you probably will know the name because I've spoken to about him many times before. But his name is Harold Wheeler, and he was the musical director for Dancing with the Stars. But way prior to that, he was a big film writer, music, movie writer and jingle writer, and he wrote all sorts of Broadway shows. He orchestrated the very first Jackson 5 movie. I forget what it was called. It was a long time ago. And he orchestrated Dreamgirls, that was on Broadway, and Tap Dance Kid, and The Wiz.
What was his name? What was his name?
Harold Wheeler.
Harold Wheeler. More fun than Sinatra?
Oh, Harold Wheeler was on. I used to work for him a lot, mostly recording, in the studio. A lot of studio work I did for him, and when he would write, the guitar part, and I would look at it and I said, it's like he knew exactly what I would do in this situation. It was like he knew. That's the real gift of good orchestrators and arrangers. They know who they're writing for, and so they take advantage of what they can do rather than throw stuff at them that may be foreign. And he just knew how to do that. And every time, it was the most rewarding times of my life in the music business was working for him. And every time I used to come home from a session, I used to say to my wife, I said, something, I could die tomorrow. I'm totally fulfilled. This was this guy, unbelievable. It was so, it was just so, right. Everything was right. It was creative, and it was fun. And he always had the greatest musicians were on the band. The best guys in New York City. And it was just
right.
It flowed. It just flowed. So yeah, he's definitely number one for me without a doubt.
That's unbelievable. I didn't know you were going to say that. I thought you were going to give me,
Like I say to everybody, I said, all of that is showbiz. That's showbiz, glitz and glamour, showbiz.
Yeah.
Showbiz.
This is real music.
Showbiz. Harold was serious music on a very, very high functioning level, which is, what I always wanted to do. So that was the most fun for sure.
All right. That's a great answer. Now, we're moving on to the jingle biz. You got into the jingle biz.
Yes,
and by the way, yes. Steve, you are indicative of when one door closes, another door opens. You would always tell me that Hashem would send you your next business before the other one ended. And then it ended, and you were in another business.
Correct. And I tell all my students at the conservatory that I run at Frisch that, I say to them, any opportunity that comes your way, even if you think it's not going to, amount to anything, take it. You never know where those things are going to take you. But you want to know how I got into the jingle business? Is that right?
Well, tell us a little bit about the jingle business and if you wrote any songs that we might know for shows.
Okay, so when I first got into the jingle business, I started working for a company called Michelin and Company, and they were the music house for Hasbro toys.
Uh-huh.
So as I started as a session player, working for them, playing the guitar, session player, and then I started also doing a little writing, and so I was part of the team that produced and put together GI Joe.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Great American Hero, yeah, that's ours, and Transformers, Robots in Disguise. That was me and the team, and some other things you probably for the younger. My Little Pony was a very big one for us, and all sorts of Milton Bradley stuff, and I did a lot of toys, and toys are very, very big. Toys are big because what happens is, like for example, when we did the first Transformers jingle, "Robots in Disguise" was the byline. It's the first Transformer. It's the first doll, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Now, within a few months, then they add some accessory to him. Oh, Transformers, in a tank or whatever. So
Yeah.
now they take that same jingle, same one, the one that I recorded, and they change the voiceover to say now available with the tank, whatever. That is considered a new use, which means it's as if I recorded it all over again, and I get paid again, as if it was brand new. And with toys, they do that constantly. I remember in the first year of the Transformers that I must have gotten like, oh, 2 dozen different,
Yeah.
redos, which are considered brand new. So with toys,
Fabulous.
that's a very lucrative. So that was my specialty. This particular thing. But I did also, I did McDonald's and Burger King and Pepsi and Coke and Maxwell House Coffee and Folgers Coffee, and I did oh my God, just on and on and on, all different jingles. But I love jingles. The best part about jingles for me was it only takes an hour. So you go into the studio with, most of the time you're playing with the people, the leader gives you the music and they record it. Boom, you're in and out in an hour. And so you can book, or at least I did in those days, I could book 5 or 6 jingle dates in a day. I'd have like a 10 o'clock session, 11:30 session, 1 o'clock session, 2:30 session, blah, blah, blah. Each one was a completely different product. And, I just love the fact we're not hanging out all day. I go in there, I get the music, I get some direction from whoever it is, and we play it, and gone.
Fantastic. All right.
Loved it.
Next part of your career. The next part of your career, as far as I know, was when you became the rhythm part of the rhythm section for Jewish music albums. You played on over, I don't know how many, over 200, over 2,000. How many albums?
I don't know the answer to that question. Ding, Ding, who I worked for many, many years. Ding says it's over 350, but I don't know.
So you would basically, for everybody out there, everybody who made an album, they would use the rhythm section of Rick Cutler on drums, Harry Max on bass, Yaron Gershovsky on keyboard, and Steve Bill on guitar. And you guys, and that's how I met you, because in 1984, as we segue to Kesher, you played on the Kesher session, which was orchestrated by Nachman Klein. Yeah. And then you actually arranged Kesher 2 and Kesher 3. Now, in between Kesher 2 and 3, I come to see you. And we're at a pizza place. And I tell you, Steve, I did Shlock Rock Learning is Good. And it's time for a second one. What do you think? And I played it. I played you the first album, and you said, I can do better than this. In other words, I can, quality-wise, we can get closer to the original sound. And I said, okay, let's do it. And that's how your first Shlock Rock production was Purim Torah.
So let me stop you there and tell you why Shlock Rock was so intriguing to me. And that is, as a musician and a guitar player, learning my craft, I did a tremendous amount of transcription, where I would, if I found a guitar player that I really dug, I would write all his solos out and then analyze them, as far as what his scale or resources were, or whether he's a melodic player or a harmonic player. In fact, I've got hundreds and hundreds, maybe even more. And every time I would do that, I would never let one note go by that I wasn't absolutely sure about. So I was very, very specific. So now when it came to doing Shlock Rock, to recreate these very famous songs, some of which were, obviously classics and some of which were newer, I took it very, very seriously. I mean, I matched every single thing. I took the drum parts apart. I knew exactly where every snare drum was, where every, and I never added, sometimes they would say, the drum programmer that I hired, he would say, maybe a little tambourine. I said, nah, if it's not there, can't do it. And I would just duplicate it perfectly. It had to be perfect. That's what I enjoyed. I wanted to really, can you imagine you take apart a tune, whatever song, it doesn't matter, but a famous song that everyone knows. Well, when we did Reeling in the Years, which was a challenge.
Reeling in the Years with Steely Dan. Yes.
To take that song apart and recreate it was such a learning experience, like, oh, wow, I'm starting to see all the little parts and how they all made sense, and how each part worked off the other. And of course, the bigger challenge of all was, not always, but sometimes I had to change the key.
Right.
And then you run into a whole other gambit of problems, because now you're getting out of the best range of any particular instrument for the particular part that you're listening to. And, it becomes a Reeling in the Years was one of those tunes. I think we had to modulate it up a fourth. I think it was a fourth of
the original. Really, and also Still the One. You remember we did Still the One? That was, it was very hard. I couldn't hit those high notes for those guys. The
other thing I want to tell you is the process for me was, I wrote all those parts out first. I actually transcribed the whole song, all the parts, every instrumentation, all on a tremendous score page. I wasn't going around listening and playing and listening. No. I had to have it all in front of me. And once I did that, if I had to change a key, I had to transpose all of that.
You were the perfect guy for this, because people always say, why is Shlock Rock successful? Why did it continue? 1 album, 2 albums, but now we're up to like 16 parody albums. We're at 39 albums total. And I always say it's because the music was so accurate. The lyrics were witty, but the lyrics witty with a crappy band would not have worked. It had to be a perfect replica of the song with witty lyrics.
100%. Whenever one of my students, if I assign them a transcription to do on something and I find one note in there that's wrong, I get really bugged. You know what you just did? You don't understand what he was thinking about. Now you interjected your thoughts in there, but that's not the assignment. You want to know exactly what he was thinking, and that one note can change that.
Right. That's true.
This was a very, very rewarding experience doing the Shlock Rock. I enjoyed it tremendously. It was a lot of work.
And for us as a band, we were growing. We all of a sudden we were getting bigger and bigger, and our audience was growing, and we were touring, and we were going everywhere, and it was because, and those albums, I mean, people come up to me to this day. We listen. My kids are listening now. It stands the test of time. It still is applicable for kids today, for parents, grandparents. It's really an unbelievable thing.
Just to jump off for a second, I still every now and then bump into somebody that I don't know who asks me about a guitar solo that I played on one of the Kesher records, or asks me about some arrangement that I did for, some of the original projects that we did together. And, and we're talking about young people who are rediscovering this stuff. I think is so great, really.
That you had some solos on Lenny and the Schlockers from the song First Step. The song First Step. that when my band heard your solo, they said, "How are we going to play this? How are we going to?" And they would sit there and they would practice and they would practice and they would practice. And we got close. We got close. We didn't get close.
Can I tell you something? It's interesting. When I listen back to some of those, I don't know how I played them. I really don't. My head is in such a different place. One of my students said to me, can you play really fast, Mr. Bill? And I said, I used to be able to play really fast, but I can't play fast anymore. And he asked me, why? Is it a physical limitation? I said, no. I said, I don't hear it that way anymore. My mind and my hands don't go there anymore. They go to a new place, and then it's a much more reserved, careful. I'm really careful. I'd rather play one really great note than 10 that mean nothing at all.
Right. You know that the son of Jacob, Benjamin, had 10 kids.
My favorite guy, by the way.
And Dan had one, or I can't remember which one. I think Dan had one kid. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they say that he was bigger than all 10 kids of Benjamin combined. In other words, one note better than 10 notes, right? It's quality.
By the way, Joseph's my favorite of the whole crew over there.
Really?
Oh yeah. Joseph's my man. He's my man.
So, we have so much we could talk about with Shlock Rock. We could spend the next hour talking about it. I'm gonna pick out a couple of things that stick out for me. When we did the Kosher Police Project, that was so much fun. They were all so much fun. But Mark Infield going, even canned goods. We got such a laugh out of that. For the people out there, you guys, there are 39 albums. You have to listen to every single one because they're all amazing. You know what also I loved? I loved David Went Up to Goliath in the Shlock Rock Meets the Prophets thing where you transcribed the violin solo and you brought in a violinist and you said that the guy gave you two versions. One was exactly on key, but then the other one was a little bit off key because the guy in the Charlie Daniels is actually not in tune on the original track.
That's Charlie Daniels, by the way. That is.
Yes. Yeah. So that's an unbelievable thing that you went to such lengths to recreate, right?
I had to have it. I had to have it just right. I had to have it. And of course, when you play, I'll tell you one of my most famous stories are with Shlock Rock. So we did You Can Call Me Al.
Yes.
Remember? So, there's this little bass solo in the middle of that tune that's very famous.
Yes.
It's like 2 bars long. You know what I'm talking about. Anyone who knows
100%.
Knows that.
Yes.
Could not find a bass player who could duplicate that. Tried 4 different people. No one could come close. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And everyone was saying, so you'll put something different there. I said, no, I can't do that. It's got to be that. It's what it is. So I said, maybe I could, I had the CD, right? And I had everything we had recorded on the 24 track, the multi-track, the 2-inch. And I said, maybe if I could just get right to the right spot and hit the CD player, and then hit the recorder, because we didn't have digital editing in those days, just hit the recorder. It would come in right in the right place. Baruch Hashem, that's exactly what happened on the first try.
And I always wondered how that happened, but I actually knew. I thought you said to me that the solo is really a backwards thing. In other words, they played it and then they played it backwards.
That is correct if you listen to it very carefully, but I didn't have a problem with that because I had figured out what it is front-wise, and I wrote it out.
Oh, I didn't know.
And I said to the guy, just play what it is, and then I'll flip it around so it gets that backwards effect, But no one could play it. It was a lot of popping and slapping, and it was kind of fairly new in those days, that technique. There weren't a lot of guys who really had it down. And so I can't believe it. It worked on the first try. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that was a 1 in a million chance that that was ever going to happen, and it worked on the first one. Perfect.
So
And
in
I'm just
19 that album came out in 1993. It was called "Bring Back That Shabbos Feeling." This is track 4. "I'll Be Called Michal," which is a parody of
right,
Paul Simon's "Call Me Al." I don't
right.
believe Paul Simon has ever heard it, even though I have connections to him. One of my former investor is friends with him. So, but we've never really. I'm afraid to play it for him. Like I'm afraid.
Do you remember? Oh no, you know what it was? So my very first album that I did in the Jewish business as an arranger and
Yeah.
producer, the first one was called Avi and the Chipmunks,
Yes.
and it was a children's album and I did it for Shia Menlowitz,
Yes.
my dear friend, one of the greatest producers of Jewish music, in our
Of
business.
all
Great,
time.
of all time, an
Yeah.
innovator, a pioneer. And so, we took it was based on Alvin and the Chipmunks, right? So when this album came out, the guy who owned
They heard
Alvin
it.
and the Chipmunks had heard it, and he called. I don't know how he got to me, but he called me, and he said, my name is Ross Bagdasarian Jr. That's the guy who owns Alvin and the Chipmunks. He says, I have this album here, Alvin and the Chipmunks, and this is blatant copyright infringement. You know. Anyway,
Yeah.
make a long story short, he says, I'm flying into New York. I'm going to go to my lawyer. I want you to meet me at my lawyer's. And the lawyer was in New York City, like a big highfalutin guy with 50 secretaries, one of those.
Yeah.
And, I went up there and the guy says to me, so Mr. Billy, see, he's asking me this, and I don't know anything about the sales. I had nothing to do with that. He says, Mr. Billy, says, how many of these albums do you think you're going to sell in the lifetime? I said, maybe about 5. And he stops me. He says, million? I said, no. Bagdasarian says, 100,000? I said, no. And the lawyer says, 5,000? I said, no, maybe 500. And the lawyer turns to Bagdasarian. He says, you're going to lose your shirt on this because you're not even going to be able to pay for my time today. And that was it.
And that's why we never got that's why we never got anything happening to us either.
Right.
Although,
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to tell you that the 250,000 fans that are listening right now, because we're actually I'm looking at Facebook and we're getting a lot of people commenting. David Winter, Dr. D, Ellie Landau, Uncle Roy Yokelson has commented.
Uncle Roy
So
and Uncle Roy Yokelson. I just want to say, Uncle Roy Yokelson was quite a guy to work with. He was a phenomenal engineer, and also one of those people who I loved working on this project because he was also very specific. He would never let anything go by that wasn't exactly correct, and he was the perfect guy for that.
I know, he was great, and he was so much fun. And he actually said to me that if he would have had Shlock Rock when he was in Hebrew school, things would have been different.
Believe that. I do. I really do. I really do.
So anyway, all right. So let's just move on because otherwise let's talk about Ethan. Ethan Bill, your son, has basically taken over your business in terms of the producing, the engineering, the technical stuff. Are you proud of the fact that your son has gone into your business?
You kidding me? I couldn't be happier. It's a wonderful thing to be able to, we had the recording studio in our house. And of course, from the time he was 2 years old, he would sit on my lap behind the console. And, you remember that. And, absorb all this stuff. And, he grew up in a recording studio. And not only were all the great Jewish artists coming in there, but of course, all, regular, secular artists, famous drummers. And he would sit in the drum booth, with famous studio drummers, and they would show him what he was doing and all sorts of stuff. And I'm very, very, very pleased that all I ever wanted for him was the same thing that I wanted for myself, was to be able to be happy doing what we do to make a living, which means, if you have a passion and you can figure out how to make a living doing it, you're never going to work a day in your life. You're just going to have fun all the time, which is, I was very blessed to be able to have that happen. And that's all I ever wanted for him. And of course, and I say this unequivocally, as an engineer, as a producer, as all those things, he's far better than I ever was. And his mixes, to listen to his mixes is like it's like a revelation, really. I mean,
yeah, I love working with him, and it's a great thing. And we all did Daniel and Babylon together, which was, to me, it's the greatest thing I've ever written, and we are going to watch it come to fruition, Bezrat Hashem.
Amen.
So we just have to, keep praying that the time will be right. Obviously the last 2 years, because of Corona, there's no Broadway, there's no movies, but
oh my God. In New York, at least, once the jingle business, deteriorated, and of course, thank God, I was already moving on to other things, so it didn't hurt me that much. But most of the guys, went to Broadway. That was the place to go. And of course, Broadway over the last 20 years was the best job for musicians in New York. Number one, best paying job with benefits, hospitalization and all of that kind of stuff. And, these guys have been out of work for over a year. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah.
And if they do come back, who knows what it's going to be like? Who knows? None of the theaters can make they can't cover their bills with a half empty house.
No. I keep thinking, why is Broadway they say Broadway's going to open up this September, but how can it open up? Who's going to come? You can't fill the place, you can't have a Broadway show to 20% audience or 40% audience. You lose money.
Listen, somebody once said to me a long, long time ago, he said, once they took the band and put them in the pit and you don't see them anymore, because originally when we go way back to the 50s, and before and sometime and into the 60s, the band on a Broadway show, you saw them. They were either on the side or they were in the background. In fact, one show on Broadway that was running last year before the close down was Chicago. The whole band is on the stage. But once they took the band and they put them in the pit, you don't know if they're there. How would you know? I mean,
right.
The music that you're listening to is coming through the sound system. You don't hear that coming out of the pit. In fact, Kiss of the Spider Woman, that show, and Spider-Man, the band was not even in the same building. They were 3 blocks away, watching the conductor on a teleprompter. And they're sitting in their jeans and T-shirts playing the music. So you don't know that. You don't know it. So, when the Broadway producers are going to say, we only have half a house, they're going to say, well, how can we save some money? What do you think they're going to do?
They're going to say, let's get a soundtrack of the orchestra and press play.
Done. And you never know. You would never know. You would never know.
So we're coming to the end of our interview. I just want to say a couple of things. Number one is, let me ask this question from Shachar. Shachar says, Steve and Lenny, are there any musicians today in the Jewish music scene that you know of that are as dedicated as you all are in terms of creating music with such dedication? So I would say Avram Fried.
Oh, so you're talking about artists, not musicians in general.
Well, he's asking are there any musicians today in the Jewish music scene? So Jewish musicians, Jewish music people, So,
but again, so you think he means artists, not players. That artists. Okay. So, well, listen, Avram Fried is one of my dearest friends. We speak every Erev Shabbos. And, we're very, very close, very close. As far as I'm concerned, this is my personal opinion, Avram Fried is the epitome of Jewish music and the most wonderful Jew, besides you, Lenny, by the way, because whenever I mention Avram Fried, how much I admire him as a Jewish person, my wife always says, don't forget about Lenny.
Right.
Just the real deal. He's the real deal. He's the guy who understands that if you're going to walk around in public with a black hat and a long black coat and a long beard, you have an obligation to act in a certain way. That's an obligation, and he does. He does. And I'm just, and his music to this, all the music he does, his newest music is fantastic. When I listen to it, I say to him, "Where did you come up with this?" He always works with the best writers and the best. He records everything in. All of that stuff is done, very well done, very well done. And his stuff,
Right. Is
he's
that
timeless.
everything he records in Israel?
Yeah, he's timeless. He's timeless. He's my,
I know. The last time I saw him was before Corona. We were in the El Al Lounge. He was flying back to New York. He had just done 10 gigs in 4 days. Because of Yud Tes Kislev, the 19th of Kislev, he had 10 gigs in Israel in 4 days. I said, "Did you give him a break? Price wise?" He goes, "This is a business," he said to me. It was a great answer, actually. Okay, so Shachar corrected. He wants to know, do you know any players? Are there any Jewish players that you know of that are as dedicated in terms of creating music with such dedication?
So I'm not real, I'm retired, so I'm kind of out of the loop, and I don't really know who's out there anymore. I will tell you, without being specific, that there are a lot of tremendously talented people in the business. Certainly today, because everything is so accessible. Get on the you can get on YouTube or whatever and find all these things, and just information is. And though in my days, information you had to dig it out of the dirt. This way you can pick up anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I am absolutely positively sure that there's a lot of guys out there who are, really doing it. I would tell you that some of my students at the Frisch School are amazing musicians. I mean, amazing musicians.
And you think some of them will go into Jewish music, or they're going to go into regular music?
Regular music.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, mostly, I would say 99% of them have no interest in Jewish music at all. They're into secular music. They're into the what's out there today. Which of course I don't even understand some of that music. To me, it's there's nothing really there. For me, it's just not.
I know. No.
For listening to.
I think that it's very interesting. It's very interesting. How
the only music that I think is really valuable today is recorded in Nashville. The country music sounds incredible to me. The sound of it,
right,
amazing. Great songwriters, what, and all of those story and not overproducing, which is to me the cardinal sin. You turn something on, it's all hitting you in the face at one time, and no chance to breathe, no chance to build, that kind of stuff. Country music is the only thing that I hear that does that.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, my kids always say to me they only listen to their music in the car, and my kids I make faces. I just make faces. Yeah. I can't listen.
I will tell you another thing. When I play something that's old, well, here's a great story. When the kids enter my conservatory, they're in 9th grade. When I ask them who their favorite bands are or artists are, I would tell you the majority of them will say Led Zeppelin, Eric Clapton, the Rolling Stones. They start coming up with, and I'm saying, wait a minute, you weren't even born when these people were around. Jimi Hendrix, you weren't even born. How do you know about this? Oh, my dad used to play it, and it sounds so good. Which brings me right back. Good music lasts forever, and it's totally accessible to any age group. Good stuff. The stuff you hear today, I promise you, 10 years ago, no one will even remember. 10 years later, I'm sorry, no one will even remember what it was. You won't remember the name of the song. You won't remember the melody. Nothing. Maybe not. Maybe in 5 years. Even. Who knows?
Yeah. All right. So, Steve, it's been great having you on.
And
And
you gotta have me. You gotta have me again. I got so much more I want to say.
we'll do it. We will definitely do it for sure.
Good.
And
Good.
I want to thank everybody out there for enjoying the show and coming aboard. Remember, tomorrow night, show at 11 p.m., the famous Lag BaOmer show, 3,333 years and 33 days since we left Egypt. It's going to be a great show, musical show tomorrow night. I want to thank Steve Bill for coming on. Everybody out there, make sure you go to fourcornersproject.org and make a donation for the year. Steve, thank you very much. And it's been fantastic, working with you all these years.
My pleasure always.
All right. Okay, everybody, keep on schlocking, and we'll see you tomorrow.